Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, hi, my name is Mela, and in today's video I'm just going to be going over 3 little tips on how you can stay organized for uni. These are things that I like to try and do to, kind of stay a little more sane during the semester, and they've really helped. I've been using these tips, or techniques I should say, for basically all of my university life. I just wanted to share these with you, so let's get straight into it. Okay, so this video is going to be broken up into 2 main parts, but all in all 3 little techniques. So the first main thing I want to talk about is how I stay organized in general, and then the second part is kind of just how I tackle assignments and how I get them done in a way that is as least stressful for me as possible. Okay, so to start things off, I'm just going to talk about what I call the master checklist. And this is a checklist that I kind of draw up right before the semester starts. So about a week before the semester starts, as soon as the unit guides are put out, I kind of go through them and take note of all the important dates. And the important dates for me are, of course, the mid-sem break, because I always want to know when my next break is going to be, and of course the assignment date. I also like to look at the specific subjects, and on their sites it usually will tell me what topics are for each week and what readings I also have to do for each week. So I definitely also make sure to note those down, and that will just come in handy later on when I want to look at what readings I have to do in a kind of overview way. The checklist is dated and color-coded because I find that that's the easiest way for me to keep track of everything. And I also like to keep it at the front of my folder or, above my desk so that I can easily access it and I can tick things off as I go throughout the semester. So the checklist is super important for me in helping me stay organized, because I'm just one of those people who prefer to have things laid out for them kind of in an overview so that I can see everything that needs to be done. And even though I can kind of keep things in mind or make a mental note, I just like the security that this checklist gives me. And also because it's so easy to access, I don't always have to go through my laptop again and have to kind of go online to check all the dates. It's all laid out for me and it just makes things easier. So on the checklist for each week, I have a checkbox. I have a box for the lecture of that week, the readings I have to do, the tutorial or like the class, and any assignments that I have on that week. And this is because sometimes I prefer to watch my classes online or watch my lectures online, and just to be sure that I've actually watched them, I just like to tick them off as I go along. And then of course the assignments, you want to tick those off as you go along, because then you know that you've done them. And then of course the readings as well. Out of all 4 of those, of course the assignments are the most important, because the last thing you want is to miss an assignment. The great thing about this checklist in terms of assignments is that you can see how far your next assignment is, or if there's maybe a week where all your assignments are due at the same time. For example, in this semester I have quite a few assignments due within the same week, so this helps me to plan ahead and make sure that they're all going to be submitted on time. So yeah, this checklist really helps to make sure that none of the assignments really sneak up on you. Now, another thing, I think this is probably the last point I want to make about this checklist: be sure not to kick yourself whenever you maybe miss a reading for a week, or you just don't get everything done within the week, because it's not always possible, I guess, to complete everything for that week, and that's totally understandable. Life gets in the way. There are definitely going to be weeks that are busier than others, or maybe you have more commitments that week. Maybe you're not even feeling well that week. You might be feeling sick. It's not ideal, but it's not always realistic to believe that you're gonna get everything done within that week. Maybe also sometimes there are so many readings that week to get through that you're not going to be able to get through all of them, and that's okay too. But this checklist does give you the chance to kind of look back on what you've missed or what you haven't completed, and then whenever, if ever, you guys find a spare moment to go back, you can always look, oh, I've got this reading to do, or I haven't watched this lecture. So this really helps me also in terms of prepping for exams. Usually around the start of exam prep week, I will go through this checklist and look at anything that I might not have understood as as well as I could have, because I haven't done the readings, or because I didn't get to finish the lecture or even get to the lecture kind of thing. So looking back at this checklist, I can go through it and focus on the areas that I do need to focus on. And yeah, because it's in such a overview type of layout, you can see how much work you've got to do to catch up. Okay, so technique number 2 is all about how I plan on a day-to-day basis. And basically, I think I've said this technique or this tip to you guys in one of my previous videos, but it is so important, and it is finding a way to plan or keep your weeks organized in a way that works for you. For example, I prefer to write things down. I have tried, you know, writing things on my laptop or keeping notes in my phone, but I just find that I prefer handwriting stuff. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. I want to talk about planners for a second. I loved buying planners so much. I've always loved, you know, buying cute little planners. I feel like every time I go to Officeworks or, you know, even Kmart, I'll just browse through the planners section just because, I don't know, I have this thing with planners. I've come to notice that I do kind of struggle to use them properly. You know, I'll be really good with them and I'll constantly or consistently write in them and plan things out for maybe, you know, a few weeks or months. But then after that, I'll completely forget, or I'll just like fall off the wagon, and I'll start writing lists on random pieces of paper and slipping them into my notebooks or something. Okay, so this is my... it's upside down. So this is my Kiki K planner, and I absolutely love it. I bought it for myself a few years ago, but once again, even these kinds of planners where you can kind of customize it, you can buy refills. As much as I love it, I also totally failed on using it, especially in the past couple of years. But the great thing about these planners is that unlike dated planners, you know, if you buy a specific year, for example 2018, you can't really reuse it. If you don't use it for that year, it's kind of like a waste. The great thing about this planner, however, is that because it's refillable, the whole planner itself doesn't go to waste, which is what I really love about it. There might come a day where I do want to start using again, probably after university, just because I found that my current way of planning is what works best for me in terms of university. Anyway, the technique that kind of works for me, I know a lot of people love to bullet journal now. I tried bullet journaling, but it just took too long for me because I'd always be really pedantic about how my titles would look or how my pages would look. So this is the notebook that I use on the daily. It's just a simple notebook, nothing too special about it. I bought it at Officeworks. Don't know how much for, but what I'll do is every night or every morning I'll write down the date, of course, and whatever I plan to do on that day, and I try and make it as realistic as possible. Of course, there are days where I'm gonna think that I can take on 5 things and I'll only be able to do 2. I feel like writing down what I'm planning to do in this list format gives me sort of a structure to my day. Sometimes I'll go one step further and I'll actually plan my day out on my calendar, you know, hour by hour, what I'm gonna do at 12 o'clock or what I'm gonna do at 3 o'clock or what I'm gonna do at 10 o'clock at night. So the reason why I've just got a notebook as well is because there are times when I prefer to write my work down on paper rather than typing it out. So this will double up as, you know, my workbook, and I'll do some of my work in here, some of my work on my computer, you know, just depending on how I've organized things or what I'm feeling like. Usually my assignment work also goes into here, you know, notes I'm taking, but I'll get to that in a second. So yeah, finding a way to plan. I feel like planning is so important, especially in university, because you do have a lot of other commitments, you know, work, life. So just to keep on track with university, I find that keeping things in a specific planner or in a specific area, you know, maybe you prefer to do things on your computer, you know, as long as you have a place where you can refer to what you're planning to do maybe that day or that week, it's just really helpful because it provides structure to your day, and that way you can get things done without aimlessly just kind of doing things. Do you know what I mean? So like, for example, the days I don't end up planning in here or, you know, writing down, I'll end up just spending forever on one task and not realizing that, hey, maybe I should move on to the next one. It just means that I can waste as little time as possible because I know that there are other things I have to do. And also, I just like the feeling of checking things off on a list. I think you guys know that by now. You know, I've got my master checklist, my daily checklist. And now we're gonna move on to technique number 3, which is my assignment checklist. So I'm definitely someone who cannot do an assignment the night before. I always need a couple of weeks to get my head around it and actually do it. Once I get my hands on the assignment worksheet, I'll usually print it out just so I can make a few notes if I have to, or, you know, write around it. Quick tip, to save on paper, I like to print double-sided and 2 pages on each Let me explain. I like to print 2 pages per page, so it's like smaller, but I mean, as long as you can read it, it's fine, right? And also double-sided, and that just saves some paper. I print it out, or I get my hands on it as soon as possible because I just want some time to casually kind of just, no, not casually, to calmly just look over it and get my head around assignments, because, you know, there's some assignments that are just really hard to understand, even though they're like probably the simplest things. I don't know if it's just me, but there are some assignments where I'm looking at it and I'm like, it does not make sense. And then usually I'll, of course, you know, go to my lecturer or my tutor or whoever I have to talk to get my head around it. And then, of course, because I'm me, I always have to make some sort of checklist, and I will make a checklist for the assignment. And usually that's just, you know, what the assignment is actually asking for, making sure that I've answered the question or I've done what it's asking me to do. I'll also pop in things like, if it's a report, I'll pop in like the headings that I'm planning to write under, you know, reference list, making sure that I've got a reference list. Even though it's actually on the sheet, I just prefer also writing it down, because I feel like once it's in my words in terms that I understand, it's a lot easier as well, and it kind of just reiterates that I know what I've got to do for the assignment. So the most important part for me is starting assignments as early as I can, just to give myself as much room to breathe as possible, because I just have to get things done. I don't like leaving things last minute, and because of that, I only have one major rule. I have to have a working draft ready at the very least a week before the assignment is due. And I know it might sound a little bit like overkill, like really, you really have to do that. Of course you don't have to, but this is just a tip I want to put out there because it's totally helps me in keeping my stress levels lower than they usually are. I like to have this rule for myself because the assignment's basically done at this point, you know. This draft that I make for myself, it basically has to be good enough that I could potentially submit it if I had to. So this week is just for any editing that I might have to do if I want to, you know. I'll occasionally look at this draft every now and then, but also this draft is also to take the weight off my shoulders, you know, just knowing that the assignment is done and that it's ready to go if I don't have time to edit it. Because, you know, there are going to be times when your assignments are piling up, but you also want to keep up with everything else. You know, you don't want to fall too far behind because you're too focused on your assignments. So within this week, my focus isn't totally on my assignment. You know, it's the back of my mind. You know, I'll remind myself, oh hey, you know, if you want you can edit it later on or have a look at it or proofread it. I always try and proofread my assignments at least once, and I will usually print it out and write all over it. Sometimes I get a little crazy and it's like 80% red pen because, you know, maybe there's something I want to change around or something, but proofreading is so important to me. I always have to do it. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. Basically, it gives me like that week to kind of relax a little bit. Of course, it's not like you have to get that assignment draft done that week or else, you know, everything's gonna fall apart. A week is just easier to remember. You know, it could even be like 2 days before the assignments due, have a draft ready so that you don't have to be working on it the night before, because that is just too much stress for me and it is not needed, and I will avoid that kind of stress as much as I can. So assignment checklist, printing out the assignment worksheet, getting it started as soon as possible or as early as possible at your earliest convenience, of course, and then having that 1 week rule totally helps. Okay, so in terms of actually doing your assignment, usually I'll write my notes in my notebook first and I'll make note of my references. In terms of references though, what I like to do is I like to write out the reference in full straight away so that when it comes to actually writing up my assignment, it's already there. And this is especially helpful if you're taking notes on your laptop because, you know, once you write out your reference in full, you can just kind of copy and paste it later on. And that is it for today's video. I'm so sorry I haven't been able to upload in so long. It's been a couple weeks, but I hope you guys really enjoyed. I hope these tips were pretty helpful. They're all about organizing, how you can stay ahead in uni as much as possible, because there are of course going to be days when, you know, you fall behind. I definitely fall behind more than I'd like to, but these things help to keep me kind of a lot more calmer than I would be if I didn't have these things in place. You know, if you guys do take on these really simple and easy to do, you know, techniques to keep yourself organized at uni, I hope that they work out for you guys. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to comment and subscribe if you'd like. I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!